Good afternoon, students. So today I'm going to go over how to do the 5-paragraph essay structure. And I want to go over how you can use this structure, not just for writing research essays, but also for business communications and for any other kind of communication. Basically, in English, in order to get from point A to point B, you need to make a claim, and then you need to back up that claim with credible evidence. And so in English, we always start out with an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. And when we write anything from an email to a business letter to a proposal, you always start out with one main idea. Stick to one central idea. So if you're going to write an email to your boss, don't ask for 5 different things in one email because that's just going to confuse people. Instead, you ask for one thing at a time, and then you back up that one thing or idea with body paragraphs. So everything that you write follows the same system. You make a claim, you take a position, and that claim is your main idea, the one main thesis of whatever message you're trying to send, the basic purpose of that message, one thing, and then you back up the importance of why you need to get that done in the next few, either the next few sentences or the next few paragraphs, depending on whether you're writing a business letter or whether you're writing an essay or whether you're writing an email. All of these forms of communication all use the 5-paragraph essay structure. And so in Write Like a Pro, in my books, and I don't know if you could see this, but in my book, my first book, I just talk about how to write the 5-paragraph essay. And then in my second book, I go over how you can use the 5-paragraph essay structure to write your business letters, your cover letters, any kind of business communications. And then I give templates that's in Write Like a Pro Part 2, is how you can use the 5-paragraph essay structure in all your different business communications. So without further ado, I'm going to go over the first book. In this presentation, I'm going to focus on just the first book, Write Like a Pro, Part 1, the 5-paragraph formula. Transform your writing with structure and clarity. So this was my first book dealing with the 5-paragraph essay. And just so you know, I got the topics for all of these Write Like a Pro books from the English 101 Week 5 forum, where they ask, so students, what kind of topics would you like this college to have? And so every time students came up with a new topic, I wrote a book about it. So therefore, I always consider my audience when I write my books. So without further ado, I will share my screen, and if I can find, there's share. And then you have the screen. Don't think it's that one, but it would be not that one. And this. Do believe this is it. Oops. There we go. So the architecture of influence. And so here you have a universal thinking map. And so here you have the 5-paragraph essay structure. You have your introduction and your thesis, your 3-body paragraphs, and then your conclusion. Now, when we write a business letter, you use the same structure, but the only difference is that the conclusion, instead of being a summary conclusion, it's a call to action conclusion. That's the only difference between how we use the 5-paragraph essay for, say, research paper versus if you're going to write it for business. And let's see. So the academic myth, it's a myth to think that the 5-paragraph essay structure can only be used for research papers. It can be used for a wide variety of purposes. It's a universal heuristic. For English communications favors linear step-by-step logic, and it expects explicit declarations and direct evidence paths. In other words, in English, you make a claim, you got to back up that claim with credible evidence. And so here you have the introduction, and in your introduction, that's where you have your hook, and that is the first sentence that grabs the reader's attention. Then you have your body paragraphs, which serves as the evidence as to why you want to take that position, or what it is you want to do, why you want something done to justify your main idea. So let's say you wanted to tell your client, I'm sorry, but the package will be late by 2 days. Okay, let's say that's the main idea of your email. Then in your body paragraphs, you would say, it's because the delivery truck is a little bit behind schedule. It's because of the holidays. In other words, you give some evidence as to why the package is going to be late for 2 days, so that the body paragraphs serve as your support beam. In other words, it justifies, illustrates, describes the main idea. And then in your conclusion, when you write a research paper, you summarize, you restate the thesis as the first sentence of the conclusion, and then you summarize the paragraph. But when you write in business communications, you want the reader or the viewer or whomever's reading the email to come back to your business. You want the reader to take action. So you would say, buy my product, or hire me to be your, hire me to be the company that's going to manufacture or solve your problem, because I'm going to be the solution to whatever problem your company has. I'm going to be the fit. So if this is some kind of cover letter, for instance, then the call to action is then you would say, my email is xyz@gmail.com, and I'm available for you to interview me Monday through Friday, and call me at this number. In other words, you want them to do something. You want them to buy the product. You want them to contact you again. You want them to do business with you. And so for business communications, the conclusion is a call to action. And so the structural integrity of the 3 parts, in other words, why always 3? Why is it that I'm always asking for 3 body paragraphs, 3 reasons, 3 solutions? That's because the human brain can only handle 3 things at a time. That's why when you see a movie, you have an introduction to the beginning, then you've got the climax in the middle, then you've got the ending where everybody walks off into the sunset in a happy, happy ending. Everything is in 3s because that's how the human brain processes everything. If you try to do anything more than 3, you try to give 5 reasons or 8 reasons, the reader just doesn't remember. The human brain doesn't remember. And so having 3 becomes your foundation for to support your claim. So it's kind of like having 3 support beams holding up your house. In other words, telling the reader why your claim or your position is the correct one. And so when we write in business, we want to write in really good grammar. We don't want to use poor tone, because even if you use good grammar, but then you say something disrespectfully, you're going to have a failed communications. And so you want to always maintain a certain level of respect when you write an email. So rather than saying, you need to come over now, I need you right this minute, kind of like in that movie, The Devil Wears Prada, where that boss is always bossing everybody around. That usually is not a very good idea. Usually, if you want someone to do something for you, it's better to ask, is it okay if, could you please submit your report by? And then you make sure that you have really good grammar, you don't make spelling mistakes, because if you make spelling mistakes, then your boss thinks that you're careless with your details. And so when you want to, tone is everything. You want to make sure that you're not too formal, but then also not too friendly. And for this, you can use ChatGPT. I think it's okay to use ChatGPT to modify the tone. So you could tell ChatGPT, write a friendly email to my friend, or write an authoritative and formal email for my boss. You should try that out. You should try out ChatGPT for that. Write a sentence of some kind of email that you would normally use at work. Then tell ChatGPT to write that same email in both a formal tone and then in an informal tone. And in that way, when you experiment with different tones, you get an idea of how to write, without ChatGPT, of course, how to write a friendly email versus how to write a formal email. And also, if you're like in different cultures, you have to respect how that culture does business. And so in other cultures, people are a lot more formal than in the United States. The United States, like American English, it tends to be quite informal, even in business settings compared to other countries. For instance, like if you're working in an American company, some people might call each other by their first names. Hey, Joan, do you have any time? Or Don, do you have any time to help me with XYZ task? But in other countries, it's Mr. Smith, can you come over, please, and assist me with such and such a task? So in other countries, everything is a lot more formal. So that's why in the workplace, you can still use first and second person case. I, my, us, we, our, you, and your. It's only when you write your research papers that you only write third person case. So when you're navigating cross-cultural hazard zones, avoid using slang and cliches. Hey, yo! We don't say yo, obviously, in a business context. Hey there, hey you there. We don't do that either. So avoid slang and cliches. Avoid sensitive topics like salary, age, weight, politics, religion, which are all considered very highly private in US workplaces. Avoid sarcasm and informal humor. In other countries, some countries, they don't even tell jokes at the workplace, unless you know the person really, really well. And then it's better to stay neutral and don't get too involved in office politics that you don't understand. Wireframing the executive email. And so this is how you would write an email. You always write the main idea or the thesis statement first. In other words, what is the purpose of your email? That should be your title. So late delivery for package, for instance, that could be your title. Then you would write, your package will be late by 2 days because of inclement weather, or whatever the reason is. And then you back up why you're going to be late. And then you would say, but don't worry, our new revised delivery time will be Saturday. Instead of being Thursday, it's now Saturday because it's supposed to have been delivered on Thursday. And so that sort of email, always stick to the subject and just make one announcement per email. Stick to one main idea per email. And so whatever that one thesis statement is, that becomes the purpose of that email. And so here, the main idea is also the very first thing you write, just like when we write the thesis statement as the last sentence of the first paragraph in the traditional research paper. And so what I'm trying to say is that the 5-paragraph essay structure is not just reserved only for the 5-paragraph, it's not only reserved for research essays. You can use the 5-paragraph essay structure for everything. And so in my first book, this one, I pretty much just write more about what is the 5-paragraph essay structure. And then in my second book, then I go into more detail of how you can use the 5-paragraph essay structure in everyday communications for academic purposes, business purposes, and so on and so forth. So if you are, and always have a positive tone when you are working. So instead of saying, oh no, the printer isn't working again, this is so annoying, you should always put it on a positive way. So instead of saying, I can't make it, I can't come at 5 o'clock, or I can't make it until 2 o'clock, or I can't, don't say can't. You would always say, well, I'll be able to see you after 5 o'clock. Now that sounds much better than I can't make it until 5 o'clock. You would say instead, I'll see you at 5 o'clock. I'll be available at 5 o'clock. So, so instead of saying the printer isn't working again, you would say something actionable and positive. I am writing to report an issue with the office printer. It is displaying error code E15. And so you always put the main idea in the first sentence, because that is just like the thesis statement in the introduction. So always do that first. And then, did I do this already? Yeah, okay. And so architecting high stake pitches. And so if you're gonna, you can also use the 5-paragraph essay structure to write a business proposal. And so in the first part of the essay, you focus on the problem. Then in the second part of the essay, you focus on the solution. And for those of you in my English 101 LAPU class, this should sound very familiar because this was your illustrative essay 1 that you had to write in weeks 1, 3, and 5, I believe. Anyway, so that's a problem solution, which is used in research proposals, business proposals. Anytime you're trying to pitch an idea in which hire me and I'm the solution to your problem. Why should they hire you? So you got to figure out how you can solve their problems. Then they would hire you to solve it. And so the hook is you define what the problem is. You define the context. Then that's kind of like the 5 background sentences in your introduction. Then you state the actual problem, and then you state the 3 different solutions that would, solve the problem. So that's how you would write a problem solution essay. And then here, engineering for digital fatigue. And so if you are tired and you use the 5-paragraph essay structure, you don't have to really do that much thinking because, it's always the same structure. You have the main idea, introduction, main idea, 3 body paragraphs, or in an email is 3 sentences. And I think in a business letter, it's usually 1 sentence. And so you always limit your paragraphs to 5 to 7 sentences each. If you make it too long, like 8 or 9 or 10 sentences, then your reader will lose interest and have digital fatigue. So always be concise and stick to the point. And so when you are going to write your resume, you want to make sure that the resume is scannable. In other words, keep it simple. Stupid. No, just kidding. You just have to keep it simple and just follow the structure. And so you want, for instance, the scroll stopping hook. That replaces, in other words, the very first thing you write, if you're writing a cover letter, for instance, you want to keep it simple. In the first sentence, you write a hook. you write about what the problem is. Then you write about the 3 body paragraphs where you write one main idea per paragraph or per block. And then instead of writing a summary, you want a call to action instead of a summary of in the conclusion. And so you make it very simple so that it can be easily scanned and be easily scannable. Unless you're doing something like graphic design, and unless you're in some kind of creative field, then you can show off your creativity. But for everybody else, keep it simple so that it can be easily scanned. And so when we talk to different people and when we on different websites, like let's say you're on Facebook, then you can be very conversational, relaxed. You can talk about your how your hair frizzes up in the morning or something like that. But then on LinkedIn, that's more professional. You don't want to show off your party pictures, your vacation pictures on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, you want to be professional, you want to be networking, you always want to show that you're the solution to everybody's problem. And you talk in a more professional way, and no slang, no cliches, no funny nicknames, no weird sounding dialects. You're formal, insightful, polite, and confident. And then when you're on Twitter, you have to make sure that you can fit everything. I believe it's 12 characters or something like that. And then you try to write about something that's current events, that's similar in a way to LinkedIn. Thought leadership news, and you want to be concise and impactful. And on Instagram, that's when you can use pictures to tell a story. And they're like Instagram and Facebook are quite similar, where you can be very conversational and you can let your hair down. Now, if I had students, I would stop midway my lecture and say, can I say let my hair down when I'm writing a business letter? Or would I say instead, I can take a more relaxed tone, or I can relax? So always, when you feel the urge to write slang, instead just write it out as regular English. So instead of saying, let's start the project and hit the ground running, people from other countries are not going to understand what hit the ground running means. So you can't assume that everybody on your team is going to understand your slang. This is the reason why, in order to be professional, you avoid slang in the office. And you just stick to saying, okay, let's start this project immediately, right away. Everybody will understand. Everybody will be on the same page, and it avoids confusion. And so, this one, emotional intelligence. Have you ever felt really angry at somebody and you typed out an emotional email and then you press submit? And then afterwards you get buyer's remorse and go, oh, I should have waited. I shouldn't have said all those nasty things to her. I shouldn't have sent that resignation letter to my boss. So you want to avoid, buyer's remorse. And so if you're angry or something at your boss or at a colleague, you need to wait to calm down before sending that email. And so here you gotta, that's called emotional, intelligence, in which you keep your tone in check. And interestingly, Grammarly can also help you with keeping a professional tone, just like ChatGPT can help you with a professional tone. And if you're like this, you should take a critical pause and go outside and clear your head before you press that submit button that could lead you to getting fired. Because if people think you're a hothead, they're not going to give you projects or think that you're responsible enough to lead a team and lead a project. Okay, you want to inspire confidence and professionalism. You want to be that solution, not some hothead who goes off on a tangent and is unstable. And so when you don't know how to express yourself because you're so angry. That's when you can use the 5-paragraph essay structure, because it's so integrated in your head that no matter how angry you are, it automatically comes out. And therefore, you will never go off topic. No matter how angry you are, no matter how nervous you are, you always sound polished. And everybody will think you are the great communicator. And so therefore, I think this is the last slide. Yay, yeah, finally this is almost over. And so using the 5-paragraph essay structure is the ultimate communication blueprint. The 5-paragraph essay structure is not a classroom restriction. It is the universal engine of clear thought. You're able to structure your thoughts in an organized manner that people can understand. You always start with the main idea, then you back it up with 3 points that justify the main idea. And then you always make sure that as having good structure, considering your audience, right? If your audience is your boss, you don't use any slang. You write out your contractions. So instead of saying I'm, you would say I am. Instead of saying isn't, you say is not. And so when you keep up that kind of formal tone, even to your boss, and show respect, then that makes you look very professional. And you avoid slang, you avoid cliches, you avoid any kind of controversial subject. So, and then you just have to remember, you have a hook, you have a thesis, 3 supporting points, and a call to action. And that's how you use the 5-paragraph essay structure in, except for the, move this, yeah, okay. That's how you use the 5-paragraph essay structure in business communications. A lot of people think that the 5-paragraph essay structure is so restrictive. But in my future books, like Write Like a Pro, Part 3, I go over how you can write creative stories inside those body paragraphs. I won't talk about it in this lecture, but in future lectures, I will talk about how you can use the 5. So the first 3 Write Like a Pro books are about how you can use the 5-paragraph essay structure in various communications. And also what I didn't cover in this one is what if it's even longer? That I'll go over in my next lecture. I think that's enough for this lecture, is just to go over the basic. You have your hook, 5 background sentences, thesis statement, which is topic, opinion, and then reason 1, reason 2, reason 3. Paragraph 2 is reason 1. Paragraph 3 is reason 2. Paragraph 4 is reason 3. And then you can use that structure for all of your different business communications. And you can use it for cover letters. I will go over all of that and give you templates. That's also included in my Write Like a Pro book, Part 2 and Part 3. So if you have any questions, and don't forget to, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the Professor H Writing channel. Now it's all about looking for the stop button. So anyway, I just want to say, have a great week.